Hey, what's up everybody? It's Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome back to Monster Energy Supercross 4, the official video game where today we're going to be playing my custom replica version of the 2021 Arlington 1 Supercross, and talking about the 2021 Arlington Supercross IRL from the past weekend, and already heading into the next round. This Tuesday it's going to be coming out as quick. A couple quick things about this replica. Obviously the start is not ideal. It goes into the berm after the finish line instead of going like across the first turn complex over the backside of the berm that leads into that like first rhythm section and continues on. But I had to do that because you can't go over the backside of a berm in this game, and I didn't want to have a flat corner going into that rhythm section. It just felt awkward for the track purposes. Plus it was going to be a little bit difficult to build it that way too, so I just was like, nah, I'll just have it go to the berm out there, and the only thing that it kind of messes up then is it doesn't have like a clean 180 in this corner right here, but I don't think it's really all that bad. I still think that the track is pretty close to spot on. You can't do the split wall jumps after the finish line, obviously, so that's one thing that's going to be missing. But I made the quads possible in both of these rhythm sections, so triple quad you can do that, and then the Dragon's Back double down to quad out is possible as well. You can do it both ways. You can go up the Dragon's Back double down, or you can do this cheeky little line that I'm going to try to do. You can triple out here, as you can see my ghost doing. But if you go out here and jump into this pocket, then you can jump out of this pocket, downside this, and then quad into the corner. So I just think that's kind of like a nice, good little flow section right there. But then, yeah, the rest of the track is pretty straightforward. So enough about the track build. It's on PC. It's called SYS Arlington 1 if you want to try it out. I might build it on the PS4 and the Xbox One, but I don't have the next-gen console yet, so sorry I don't have it built there. Let's talk about this Arlington Supercross, though. 10th round of the Monster Energy Supercross Championship IRL. Third round of the 250 West Championship. A lot of different storylines in both classes kind of coming in and now exiting, so let's just kind of dive into it. First of which, obviously the drama between Cooper Webb and Ken Roczen was, I feel like, aplenty coming into this weekend. A lot of people were definitely blowing up the comments that both of them had from Daytona about the little first turn incident that happened there where Webb pushed Roczen wide. And, starts are very critical this year. Webb kind of proved that, pushing Roczen wide and putting him on the back foot cost him a lot on the start of Daytona. And now we have a track this weekend that was very straightforward. I mean, they were pretty much everybody was doing kind of the same lines. The lap times were low. They were in the mid to low 40s most of the day. And, yeah, it was just a very fast, kind of simple racetrack by the end of it. It seemed like it was one of those tracks that everybody could do the same thing and go the same pace, and there wasn't huge separation really anywhere. And as such, it kind of created a situation where the start was maybe the biggest it's been all season long, where you just had to get out front because track position was so critical, and that's exactly what happened. So Roczen crashed in his heat race. He went over the bars trying to triple into the rhythm section before you come back to the first turn complex. And that put him way on the back foot. I think he qualified through 7th in the heat race eventually. Ended up with 13th gate picks, so just obviously not ideal whatsoever. But Webb actually got 3rd in his heat, so he ended up with 5th or 6th gate pick, somewhere around there. And Roczen was able to line up like 2 gates inside of Webb, I think. But the reason that he was able to luck into a gate on the inside half of the gate in the first place was because the rut coming out of his start gate was not very good. It had a deep divot in it. I talked about this in my race examination over on racerxonline.com. But he just kind of got a little bit out of the gate, then the front tire dug into that rut, and he got an awful start because of it. He did do a very nice job of checking up, letting the field kind of go wide in the first corner and coming out somewhere around 10th or 11th. He crossed the line at the end of the first lap in 11th. But it was not a good start whatsoever. And Webb, on the other hand, used 6th gate pick to start 2nd place behind Dean Wilson. Wilson grabbed the whole shot, but then Webb, coming into the second corner, just pushed Wilson wide, kind of into the tough blocks a little bit, and pretty much took off from there. Led every single one of the 28 laps and picked up his 4th win of the season, his 15th career victory, and now has a 7-point lead in the championship because Roczen's bad start, coupled with a fast racetrack that pretty much everybody was good at, meant that Roczen could only get back to 6th. I think, personally speaking, he should have done better than that. I mean, Sexton has only been back 2 weeks now and had to go to the dentist a bunch this week with a broken face, and he still finished 4th. AP passed Kenny and kind of gapped him a little bit, so I think that Roczen did fall apart a little bit in the race, but still 6th is not even close to what we've seen out of Kenny this year. And I'm sure there's going to be the Cooper fans that say this is all mental games and this is exactly what Webb was trying to do in the first place. I'm not fully there yet, but I can see why that would be brought up. I just think that this was a fast racetrack with not a lot of passing. You saw Tomac start 16th or something like that, and he was one of the fastest riders on the track most of the main event and only got 8th. So it just was really hard to make passes and make time up, and in the end, Webb took advantage of it and now has a 7-point lead in the championship. I think that now we can firmly say Eli's out of the championship. I know Eli fanboys last week were coming in hard with anything could happen. Eli can make this happen down the stretch. If anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Eli. I was kind of like, we'll see. I mean, every other season of Supercross has proved that wrong, but we'll see. Like, if he could get the ball rolling, and it wouldn't be complete shock, but I kind of felt like something like this was still definitely going to happen to Eli at some point, and it's interesting it happened at the very next round. But a bad start coupled with a fast track just meant 8th for him on the night, and now he's 33 points down of Webb in the championship, not Roxon anymore. And yeah, I mean, just a huge uphill battle to even get kind of even in talking distance for this championship again, in my opinion. So personally speaking, I think that is, the nail in the coffin for him fully, but I know people will have a different opinion. I think this is down to Coop and Kenny, and I think between the two of them, you have to say Coop is pretty clearly the favorite right now. Roxon has been reeling the last couple weeks. He hasn't been on the podium since Orlando won now, or yeah, was it even Orlando won, or was Indy the last time he was on the podium? Man, it's been so long. This has not really put solid rides together, it seems like, and his starts have gone completely backwards. He did get the whole shot, technically speaking, at Daytona, so I won't say it was all bad, because then the Webb thing happened. But the normal, like Kenny, that was whole shotting every race and getting right out to the front every time, just has not shown up the last couple weeks, and that's been by far probably his biggest issue. Obviously, I don't think that race pace has been quite there either, but I'm not worried that he's completely out of the championship either. Like, Webb taking the championship lead here is not me saying, oh, it's over, write the check for Webb, it's already done. We still got 7 rounds to go. There's a lot of weird things that could happen. If you even go back to Cooper Webb's championship year, it wasn't like he, had the thing locked up all throughout the season, even though he got the red plate at round 6, I think it was. He ran into some problems. He almost had a really bad night in Nashville that year, but kind of lucked out with a red flag. Like, I think that there are some things like that still could easily creep up and catch Cooper out here and there. But for Kenny's sake, the bleeding stops now. Like, you have to go in and win this weekend in Arlington too, in my opinion. Not weekend, it's going to be on Tuesday, but you get the point. Like, I think he has to win on Tuesday to just kind of at least get the bleeding to stop. Even if Cooper finishes second, you still are 4 points down the championship, but just get the momentum to stop flowing so heavily in Cooper's direction. Maybe you don't come out and win the next 3 or 4 or whatever in a row to completely swing the tide, but limit the damage from here on out and start riding the ship a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, I think that right now a lot of people are more or less kind of like bummed how quickly this championship shape changed in one round. Like, it was a 9-point swing at Arlington, which is something you don't always see. But I'm not completely ruling out that this thing still has a chance to switch gears a couple more times, and excited to see it. Probably the talking point of the night, and why you maybe clicked on this video because of the thumbnail, and maybe you have seen who I'm riding with, is Jason Anderson. He was able to get 3rd in the main event, but he had 2 incidents that kind of sparked some controversy. First of which, he cut underneath and put Malcolm Stewart, like, kind of just bumped into him a little bit, coming down this section here, going over the wall jump, and then coming into this corner. He just kind of like went outside to in, and then went like this basically on my Ghost, and bumped into Malcolm. Like, it wasn't like he didn't make contact. He definitely did. I didn't think it was that egregious. Like, it was just kind of like I need to get around this guy right now kind of maneuver. And Malcolm, 2 corners later, came up and squared him off in this corner and just went straight basically for the tough blocks, and was basically squaring up to just hit Anderson as hard as he could, it seemed like. And he went down. He went off the back of Anderson's wheel and then flew into the concrete on the side. And it was a pretty big crash by the end of it, but he was able to get up and continue on. He finished 14th in the main event. And, whether you think Malcolm did it on purpose, but that's beside the point. What happened was, he was trying to square off Anderson. If he hooked a rut and went across and tried to T-bone him, whatever. It didn't happen, so let's just move on from it. I don't think Malcolm deserves to be, burned at the stake. There's been plenty of times that guys have been pissed off at another rider and came up and showed him a wheel or two. I think he was a tad egregious with his attempt, but it didn't pan out to be a super negative thing for Anderson. So I don't think it's anything that needs to be talked about too much. But the Ferrandis pass obviously has a little bit more of people, I think, saying like, WTF, Jason, because he'd already bumped Malcolm out of the way, and then he just kind of came up right up the inside on Ferrandis before the finish line jump. And I wouldn't say it was like an out-of-nowhere pass, but he wasn't really that close. He was maybe like 3 bike lengths back, and then like came over this triple and pretty much just shot down the inside, like right to where where Ferrandis was coming out of the corner. And he basically took Ferrandis down. I don't think it was on purpose, and Anderson post-race said, like, I wasn't trying to do it on purpose. I was just trying to take him to the top of the berm, and he said that he thought that Ferrandis maybe was, like, not spooked or whatever. I forget what word he used, but basically didn't know he was there, which I think is fully accurate. I don't think Ferrandis had any idea that Anderson was coming up the inside. But, again, I talked about in my race examination video, Ferrandis' foot got caught on, basically between his bike and Anderson's bike, and that's really what caused him to go down. I think in that situation, if he has the ability to swing his foot out from underneath in that corner and swing it out and just be able to like plant his foot at all, he stays up, but his foot was caught all the way down to the ground, and that's why like when he went over the bars, his feet were still like wrapped around both sides of his bike. So to me, I don't think either of the individual passes Anderson did were that dirty, in my opinion. And the AMA said, they're investigating him and seeing like, hey, maybe we should look into this and penalize him or something like that. And I was watching with my wife, and she was pretty much like, neither of those looked like they were penalty worthy to me. And I was like, yeah, I don't really see it that way either. There's not really a reason why he should be penalized for either of those specific instances. But you could also point to the fact that it was the second time he'd done it in the main event where he, kind of squared up and kind of came down hard on a competitor. I don't know. Like, to me, that's just hard racing. I think people look at it differently nowadays, but I'm still, personally speaking, kind of like of the, 80s, 90s motocross brain to a degree where, those guys used to T-bone each other for nothing. And now you T-bone someone on the track and you're vilified. And I don't think either of those were T-bones. I think those were both just hard inside aggressive passes, block passes, whatever you want to call them. But in reality, I just don't think that either of those were that bad. So to me, that's where I sit on it. Obviously, you guys are perfectly welcome to have a difference of opinions there, and I'm happy to discuss in the comment section below. But yeah, I think Anderson was okay in both, and interesting to see how Malcolm reacted, and obviously it's a bummer to see Ferrandis go down. I mean, if you want to talk about like how it impacted me specifically, I had Ferrandis on my fantasy team in PulpMX Fantasy, so I was kind of like, dang it, he was in a pretty good spot, going to score some good points. He wasn't an all-star, so you're going to get some good double points out of him being inside of the top 10, and Anderson taking him down kind of screwed me a little bit, but I don't care. I mean, I'm more about what the product on the track is than I am about my fantasy team, and the product on the track was, is aggressive racing. It sucks that Ferrandis went down, but that's sometimes what happens in Supercross. It's just the way it goes. Anyway, that's kind of like the biggest talking point in the 450 class. Let's move on from that, and let's talk about maybe the feel-good story of the night. And of course, it was Seth Hammaker picking up his first career Supercross victory in just his third dang start. Unbelievable. I can't even fathom how that's possible in modern times. It seems like there's always so much stacked talent in these 250 classes because there's a lot of guys that stay down for maybe a little bit too long. But yeah, he looked really dang good pretty much all day long. In qualifying, he was right at the sharp end of the field pretty much both sessions. Heat race, another good start. We saw this a lot where he just is capable of getting good starts already this season. And main event did the same things. Got a good start, had Jordan Smith giving him some pressure early on, but I thought he was handling it very well. I did think that Smith was going to get him, but I was also kind of like, well, Smith has kind of imploded a couple times this year already, and I'm not really sure whether or not he's got like the full 15 in him. So maybe if he lets Smith go, it's going to help him. And then like the second I started thinking that, Smith made a mistake and slid the rear end out and went off the track and then got back on. And then suddenly he was behind Hunter Lawrence and dealing with his teammate Cameron McAdoo. And then 2 laps after that, Smith fully basically ended his night by going down. Was tucking the front wheel coming up the double face in the rhythm that I just went through 2 corners before this. Lost the front end, ended up landing sideways, and it sounds like he just kind of plowed his shoulder in. He finished the race, which was crazy, so he was out there doing some good lap time still. So I thought maybe it was a broken collarbone, but maybe it's not. I don't know. But either way, McAdoo, who was charging forward at the time and was only like 4 seconds off of the lead, and I thought, oh, maybe this is, his like real championship marking ride where he just kind of walks through those guys and gets another win. But I feel like that incident kind of stifled his forward momentum, and I was able to ask him about that in the press conference a little bit earlier today, and he basically said like that, it was just lucky that he didn't land on Smith and was, fortunate that he didn't kind of double all the way in and came to a complete stop. But really what he said was that by the time he got, like the ship righted and continued going forward, and he looked up the track, Lawrence and Hammaker were already like 5 seconds further ahead than where they were. So it was, and as I said in the 450 thing, it was like, a very simple track. Kind of the lap times were, very close and similar. So there wasn't a lot of separation where he could gain a lot of time. And I think, judging by his comment, he was basically kind of saying like, at that point, I was kind of like, okay, well, it's going to be really hard to catch both of them and win this race. So maybe I should settle into a pace and hold on to this podium, because he's still gaining good points on Justin Cooper for the championship, obviously. But then Cooper caught him and made things interesting down the stretch and passed him, and then McAdoo read him like a book and passed him back, and then Cooper going for it on the last lap crashed, but he was able to finish 4th still. So it's kind of interesting where this championship is now. Hunter Lawrence jumped past Garrett Marchbanks for 3rd in the championship, but they're still nose to tail, and then Hammaker picking up his first career win now sits, I think, 15 points down. So like, I felt like after J-Mart went out and A-Mart had his concussion at the opener, and then Jordan Smith crashed at the opening round, and all these things were happening that were like, man, we're losing so many of these would-be championship contenders very early on, and now we have different faces really stepping up and making a difference moving forward, where like after the first round I was like, man, who is going to beat Cooper? And now we have 2 clear answers. You got McAdoo, who is probably the better rider at Daytona, and Hammaker, who is pretty much the best rider in Arlington, at least so far, and now Cooper's a little bit on the back foot here, having to do some chasing, and it's looking like it's maybe wearing on him a little bit. His starts have been awful the last 2 weeks, and his pace has been decent getting through the field, but it's not been as like electrifying as I thought it might be. So because of that, it's going to be really interesting to see how he reacts in these next 2 rounds. Like if he comes out and wins on Tuesday, I think that's going to be really huge for his like confidence boosting. It'll be the first time he'll win a mid-season Supercross round. Like he won Anaheim 1 and then Orlando 2, which are the opening rounds of the last 2 championships, but he hasn't won a Supercross beside that. He won a Triple Crown race at Glendale, but that was just a race. It wasn't an actual, full-blown all 3 main events kind of thing. So I don't really know where I sit with this championship. Like suddenly it seems like McAdoo's the favorite, and I hate that because he wasn't even like kind of on my radar championship-wise coming into the season, but it's hard to bet against him right now because even when he doesn't get a good start, it seems like his composure has been very good at getting through the field and not letting the like I need to get to the front and finish first kind of things, get to his head. Cooper seems like it's bitten him more that in that sense already through a couple rounds. So it's just gonna be so weird to see. And like suddenly, is Hammaker a legit title threat? I maybe. Like it's not impossible to say. You want to look back to like last year, for example. Jet Lawrence almost won his 3rd Supercross race, and I think had he done it, you probably would have looked at it as like, holy crap, like this is a 17-year-old Jet Lawrence suddenly right in the thick of a championship chase. And obviously coming into his 2nd year, he was maybe a championship favorite because of that. And he hadn't even won a race at that point. So now Hammaker, he has a win. He's 20 years old, so he's older than Lawrence. He has a little bit more kind of, I think, maybe maturity about him. I guess we haven't really seen him under like high pressure levels yet, aside from this race victory. But we'll see it as the series goes on and see if he can continue doing this. I guess if there's anything that you can point to that's going really well for him, is his starts have been great through 3 rounds, and if that trend continues, and he's a guy that can run the pace of those guys out front. I mean, there's no reason to say that he can't be a consistent, race-winning threat, if not a title threat. But I want to see a little bit more sample size. Daytona, he had to come through the field a little bit, and then at Orlando, it wasn't a bad night, but it wasn't like a kind of night that we just saw here. So we'll see. I don't know. Like, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like, who is suddenly the favorite for this championship? Because I feel like it's just so tough to say anything negative about McAdoo through 3 rounds. He's been very good and finished on the podium all 3 rounds. He's the only guy to do so now. It's no, he didn't finish on the podium at Daytona. I'm sorry. He finished. Where did he finish? Wait, what am I saying? He won Daytona. I'm stupid. My mind is just in a big, complete bubble right now. Anyway, McAdoo's looked fantastic. So yeah, tell me what you guys think in the comment section below. Has he done enough to kind of steer you into believing he's a championship favorite? Do you still think Cooper is going to come back and do something different? Is suddenly Hunter Lawrence, Garrett Marchbanks, and Seth Hammaker serious title threats? I don't know. There's a lot of question marks I still have, and I think we probably have to get through Arlington before I have all of them completely solved. But maybe Arlington 2 is a big turning point. So again, I'm going to say I'll say Roczen and Cooper win Arlington 2 just for the sake of, like, man, I hope that stuff like that happens to make these championships bust a little bit more wide open. I always love seeing the chaos, but we'll see. One last thing I wanted to mention in this video, Marvin Musquin obviously went down very heavily in the heat race after he qualified first. And what he said was he hit neutral on the on-off in the section that he went down, I guess. And that pitched him over the bars, and then he augered in pretty hard. And I've heard a couple different reports about what happened, and all of them seem to match up, so that's why I'm piecing this together. One report I heard was he was out for about 10 seconds, and the medic crew took a long time to get there. But when they did get there, he was pretty alert and, like, getting up and standing on his own. So I'm pretty sure he was, like, completely concussed. And that's why most likely he didn't race the rest of the night. Like, they said they added stitches to his arm, but I would imagine that he failed concussion protocol. The thing that worried me was I heard someone say that they were watching in the stands, and when he stood up, or not when he stood up, but before the medics even got there, so he was still, like, just coming to, that he was, like, looking around and acting like he was talking to other people and sitting there on the track. I don't know if that's accurate or not. Again, that's just a hearsay rumor, but it seems to line up with other stories that I've heard. And if that's true, that's a more significant concussion, I think, than just being knocked out for 10 seconds. Like, 10 seconds is still a very long time for a concussion. Like, usually, like, in and out of a couple seconds is a concussion where you probably expect the guy to come back the next round. I don't know. I feel like if you get up and you start talking to people that aren't there after being out for 10 seconds, that's a little alarming thing. But we'll see. I just hope for Marvin's sake that if he does come back, he is 100% and good to go, because I personally felt that was the best we've seen of Marv all season long. That's the most aggressive he's looked. And if hitting false neutral basically is the thing that ends his season there, I'm going to be bummed, because I was hoping that he would come in late here and kind of be a little bit of a spoiler both ways, like win a race or two and make things really interesting, make things that, between Webb and Roczen, they're not getting 3 points a race, they're getting 2 or 1 points between each other a race. So hopefully he can come back. Hopefully Tomac gets the ball rolling and everything like that, and this 450 championship gets completely nutty down the last 7 rounds. But thanks again for stopping by watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. As always, appreciate it. And if you have any comments, questions, concerns, hit up the comment section below. I'm happy to chat down there with you guys. So thanks again, and we'll see you guys in the next one. So long for now.